Mary looked back and saw the man she loved, his eyes cold and empty. Before she could understand, she felt his hands forcefully push her back. The world spun, the wind whipped across her face, and the last thing she heard before falling into the abyss was her own voice screaming for the baby she carried in her womb. He didn't reach out, he just watched. Before we dive into this story, leave a comment with a rating from 1 to 10 and tell us which city you're joining us from. May this moment bring reflection and emotion to your heart. The afternoon was beautiful in Monterey. The sun was beginning to set over the ocean, painting the sky orange and pink, and Mary felt a peace she hadn't experienced in months. Beside her, Richard drove in silence, his hands firm on the steering wheel, his face serious but relaxed. She placed a hand on her 6-month pregnant belly and smiled. Finally, after so many arguments, so many misunderstandings, they were starting over. "You'll like the place," Richard said, without taking his eyes off the road. "It's special. It's where I proposed to my grandmother years ago." Mary's heart tightened. He rarely spoke about his grandmother, who had raised him after his parents died. This invitation for a weekend, just the two of them, far from Los Angeles, seemed like a sign that things would finally get back to normal. "I'm looking forward to it," she replied, gently squeezing his hand. "We need this time together, Richard, we really do." He nodded, but said nothing more. Mary looked out the window, observing the mountains covered in dense coastal forest, the intense green contrasting with the blue sky. Everything seemed perfect. She was so focused on the landscape that she didn't notice the tension in her husband's jaw, nor the way he gripped the steering wheel harder than necessary. When they arrived at the overlook, the sun was already low, touching the horizon. Richard parked the car in an isolated area, far from anyone else. The place was truly special, a high cliff overlooking the endless ocean with enormous rocks forming a kind of natural frame for the landscape. "Come," he said, getting out of the car. "I want to show you the view from up here." Mary got out carefully, supporting her belly. The last few months had been difficult. Richard had been distant, always busy with work, always with meetings that stretched into the early hours. She had tried to understand, had tried to be patient, but the loneliness weighed heavily. Now, seeing him there, holding her hand to help her climb the rocks, she felt that perhaps everything really would get better. They walked to the edge of the cliff. The wind blew strong, bringing the smell of salt and sea spray. Below, the waves crashed against the rocks with impressive force, creating a white foam that rose and fell in a constant rhythm. "It's beautiful," Mary whispered, enchanted. "Thank you for bringing me here." Richard stood silently beside her. Mary looked at him, expecting to see the same admiration on his face, but what she saw was something different, something she couldn't immediately decipher. His eyes were fixed on her, not the landscape, and there was a coldness there she had never seen before. "Richard," she called, feeling a tightening in her chest. "Is everything okay?" He took a step back, creating distance between them. "Mary," he said, and his voice sounded strange, too controlled. "We need to talk." Her heart pounded. That tone, that posture. Something was very wrong. "Talk about what?" she asked, trying to remain calm. "Richard, you're scaring me." "I don't love you," he blurted out directly without preamble. "I never did. And this baby is a mistake I can't let happen." The words hit her like a punch. Mary felt her legs buckle, her breath catch. "What are you saying?" she managed to murmur, tears already burning in her eyes. "What do you mean you don't love me? We've been together for 4 years, Richard. We're expecting a child." "Exactly," he said coldly. 4 years I wasted. 4 years I could have been with the person I really want." Mary shook her head, refusing to believe. "There's someone else," she whispered, more to herself than to him. "You're with someone else." Richard didn't deny it. He just stood there looking at her with that empty expression, as if she were just an obstacle he needed to remove. And it was at that moment, that second of painful clarity, that Mary understood. She understood why he had brought her to such an isolated place. She understood why there was no one around. She understood the truth her heart refused to accept. "You're going to do something to me," she said, her voice trembling. "Richard, for heaven's sake, you can't be thinking what I'm thinking." He took another step towards her. Mary instinctively recoiled, but she was too close to the edge. She could feel the void behind her, the sound of the waves echoing like a warning. "Don't do this," she pleaded, her hands protecting her belly. "Think about our child, Richard. Think about our baby." "He's not my child," he replied, his voice harsh. "Never was. And you. You need to disappear." Before she could react, Richard lunged forward. Mary tried to dodge, tried to scream, but it all happened too fast. She felt his hands forcefully push her back, felt her body being thrown backward, and suddenly there was no ground beneath her feet. The world turned upside down. The sky and the sea blended into a confusion of colors as she fell. The wind whipped across her face, tearing the air from her lungs, and the only thing she could think about was the baby. The child she would never get to know. The impact with the water was brutal. Pain exploded in every inch of her body, and for a moment Mary thought she would die right there. The force of the fall pushed her down, the waves pulling and pushing her relentlessly. She tried to swim, tried to surface, but her body wouldn't obey. Everything hurt. Everything burned. As consciousness began to slip away as the salty water invaded her mouth and nose, Mary had one last clear thought. Richard had succeeded. He had won. And she, naive, had believed he still loved her. Mrs. Celia was returning from her small vegetable garden when she saw something strange on the beach. She had lived there for over 30 years, in a simple little house by the sea, and she knew that stretch of sand and rocks well. But that looked like a body. "Oh my goodness," she murmured, dropping her basket of vegetables and running as fast as her 65-year-old legs would allow. When she got close, her heart nearly stopped. It was a young woman, bloody, her clothes torn, and by the size of her belly, pregnant. Mrs. Celia knelt beside her, checking her pulse with trembling hands. It was weak, but it was there. "Hold on, my dear," she whispered, taking off her own jacket to cover the young woman. "Hold on, I'm going to get you out of here." There was no way to call an ambulance in that isolated place. Mrs. Celia knew that if she wanted to save that woman, she would have to do it alone. With effort, she managed to drag the body to her house, each foot a battle against the weight and against time. For 3 days, Mary floated between life and death. Mrs. Celia cared for her with a mother's dedication, cleaning her wounds, changing bandages, praying softly for her to wake up. On the 3rd day, her eyes finally opened. Mary looked around, confused, disoriented. She didn't recognize that place, that white-haired woman who smiled at her with relief. And when she tried to remember how she had gotten there, she found only a terrifying blank. "Where am I?" she asked, her voice hoarse. "Who are you?" "Calm down, child," Mrs. Celia said, holding her hand. "You're safe now. I found you on the beach, all hurt. Do you remember anything?" Mary tried. She tried with all her might to pull up some memory, some fragment, but there was nothing. It was as if her mind were a blank page, completely erased. I don't remember anything," she whispered, panic beginning to rise. "I don't remember my name, where I came from, nothing." It was then that she looked down and saw her belly. Large, round, unmistakable. She was pregnant. But by whom? For how long? The terror she felt was absolute. "I'm pregnant," she said, touching her belly with trembling hands. "How can I be pregnant and not remember anything?" Mrs. Celia came closer, her expression worried but firm. "The body remembers, my dear. Even when the mind forgets, the body remembers. You will have this baby, and little by little your memory will return. I'm sure of it." But her memory did not return. In the following weeks, as she recovered from her injuries, Mary desperately tried to remember anything. Any detail, any face, any name, nothing. It was as if she had been born there, in that simple little house by the sea, without a past, without an identity. 2 weeks later, the contractions began. It was too early. The baby shouldn't have been born yet, but the trauma of the fall had affected everything. Mrs. Celia rushed to get the village midwife, Mrs. Rose, who arrived in time to help with the delivery. It was difficult, painful, risky. Mary screamed, cried, felt like she was going to split in two. But when she finally heard the baby's cry, a small but strong boy, she felt something awaken within her. a love so profound, so instinctive, that it transcended any memory. "My son," she whispered, her eyes full of tears as Mrs. Rose placed the newborn in her arms. "My boy." But the joy was short-lived. The baby was premature, needing urgent medical care, and Mary, still very weak, was not in a condition to care for him properly. "We need to think about his well-being," Mrs. Celia said with a heavy heart. "He needs a hospital, doctors, and you need to recover to find out who you are." "No," Mary cried, holding her son tight against her chest. "They won't take him from me. I don't remember anything, but I remember him. I feel that he is mine." "And he is, child," Mrs. Celia assured her, her own tears falling. "But right now, what he needs most is to survive. And for that, we'll have to be strong." It was the hardest decision Mary had ever made. Even without remembering all the other decisions in her life, she allowed Mrs. Rose to take the baby to be cared for by a family who could give him what she couldn't. The promise was that when she recovered, when she found out who she was, she could get him back. But as she watched Mrs. Rose leave with her son in her arms, Mary felt a part of her die with him. She collapsed to the floor, sobbing, feeling a pain that even her physical injuries hadn't caused. In the months that followed, she tried to rebuild herself. She helped Mrs. Celia with household chores, worked in the garden, went to the small town to do odd jobs. But there was always an emptiness inside her. Two losses, the memory of who she had been and the son she had for such a short time. 3 years passed. Mary, who had started calling herself Claire since she didn't know her own name, had built a simple life in that forgotten corner of the coast. She worked at a guest house in the small town, cleaning rooms and serving breakfast to tourists. It was a quiet life, without great emotions, but there was peace, or at least there was an attempt at peace. Every night she dreamed of water. She dreamed she was falling, that someone was pushing her, that there was betrayal and pain. But upon waking, the images dissolved, leaving only a bad feeling in her chest. Mrs. Celia said it was normal, that the trauma was trying to communicate, that one day everything would return. But Claire wasn't sure she wanted it to return. What if what she had forgotten was worse than not remembering? One Saturday afternoon, as she was tidying the guest house living room, the television was on a news program. Claire usually didn't pay attention, but that day something made her stop. A voice that echoed within her like a bell, activating something deep and dormant. She turned to the screen and saw a man in a suit, handsome, smiling at the cameras. He was a rising politician, Richard Miller, a candidate for state representative for Los Angeles. He spoke about family, about values, about how he had overcome the tragedy of losing his wife years ago. "My wife Mary died in a terrible accident when she was pregnant with our first child," he said, his voice choked with false emotion. "It was the hardest period of my life. But I learned that we need to move forward, honor the memory of those who are gone by doing good." Mary. The name reverberated in her mind like an explosion. Mary, Mary, Mary. And suddenly, it was as if a dam broke. The memories returned all at once, in a violent and chaotic avalanche. The marriage, the arguments, the betrayal, the trip to Monterey, the cliff, his hands pushing, the endless fall. Claire, or rather, Mary, fell to her knees on the floor, her hands covering her mouth to stifle the scream. Everything came back. Every detail, every pain, every second of that cursed afternoon. And the worst? He was alive. Well, building a political career on the lie that he was a grieving widower. "No," she whispered, tears streaming down her face. "No, no, no." The guest house owner, Mrs. Lucy, came running. "Claire, what's wrong? Are you feeling sick?" But Mary couldn't speak. She could only look at that image on television, at that man who had tried to kill her, who had taken everything from her, and who was now pretending to be a victim. Mrs. Celia arrived shortly after, called by Mrs. Lucy. When she saw Mary in that state, she knew immediately. "You remembered," she said, kneeling beside her. "You remembered everything." "He killed me," Mary managed to say, her voice broken. "He pushed me off the cliff, Mrs. Celia, and now he's on television lying to everyone. Revolt replaced the pain. A cold, calculated anger took hold of Mary's chest. For 3 years she had lived like a ghost, without identity, without memory, without her son. And meanwhile, Richard built a perfect life on his lies. "I need to make him pay," she said, wiping away her tears. "I need to expose the truth." Mrs. Celia held her face with both hands. "Then you'll need to be clever, child, very clever, because men like that, with power and money, don't go down easily. You'll have to plan every step." And that's what Mary did. For months, she researched Richard, his campaign, who his allies were and who his enemies were. She discovered he was engaged to Brenda, her former best friend, the woman he had betrayed her with. She also discovered that Brenda had a brother, Thomas, who was Richard's personal lawyer and had helped orchestrate the entire plan. The conspiracy was bigger than she imagined. It hadn't just been a crime of passion. It had been planned, coldly executed and perfectly covered up. The official story was that Mary had suffered an accident during a solo trip to the coast. Her body was never found, but false witnesses confirmed that she had rented a car and left alone. Richard was devastated, or at least he pretended well. Mary began to prepare herself. She changed her look, darkened her hair, lost weight, started wearing glasses. She transformed herself into a completely different person. And then, with a false identity that Mrs. Celia helped her obtain through an acquaintance, she applied as a volunteer for Richard's campaign. The plan was simple but risky. Infiltrate, get close, gain trust, and then, at the right moment, destroy everything. Marina Smith, that was the false name she now used, began working as a digital communications advisor for the campaign. She was good with social media, had creative ideas, and soon caught the attention of the team. In 2 weeks, she was already closer to the core group. In a month, she was participating in meetings with Richard. The first in-person meeting was difficult. Mary had to control every muscle in her face to avoid showing the hatred, the disgust, the urge to scream the truth right there. Richard greeted her with a friendly smile, not recognizing anything in her. To him, Marina was just another competent employee. "I've heard good things about your work," he said, shaking her hand. "We need creative people on the team." "Thank you, Mr. Miller," she replied, forcing a smile. "I'm here to help in any way I can." Brenda was beside him, beautiful as ever, wearing an expensive dress and jewelry that Mary recognized as her own. Her former best friend had literally taken her place in everything. The anger burned stronger, but Mary maintained her composure. "Marina is sweet," Brenda said, evaluating her from head to toe. "Quite different from the others we hired. More discreet, right?" It was a subtle jab, but Mary swallowed it. "I prefer to let my work speak for itself," she replied politely. Over time, she gained the team's trust. She proposed strategies that worked, increased social media engagement, and helped shape Richard's image as an honest and committed politician. It was ironic. She was helping to build the lie she would one day destroy. But that wasn't all. Mary was attentive to every detail, every conversation, every document. She secretly recorded meetings, photographed important papers, and mapped all suspicious connections. And the more she discovered, the more she despaired. Richard was not just an unfaithful husband and attempted murderer. He was corrupt, involved in schemes to embezzle public money, and had offshore accounts. With each discovery, her mission became clearer. It wasn't enough to expose what he had done to her. She needed to bring down the entire empire of lies. One afternoon, while organizing documents in the office, Mary heard voices coming from Richard's room. The door was ajar. It was him, Brenda, and Thomas. She approached slowly, her phone ready to record. "Are you sure you didn't leave any loose ends?" Thomas asked nervously. "If someone finds out what we did to Mary, no one will find out." Richard cut him off, irritated. "It's been 3 years. Her body was never found because it's at the bottom of the ocean. There's no way to link us to it." "I still think we should have done things differently," Brenda murmured. "She was my friend. Richard, sometimes She was your friend," Richard said harshly. "And she was in the way. We did what we had to do. Now stop worrying and focus on the campaign. In 2 months, I'll be a representative, and all this past will be buried for good." Mary felt her legs tremble, but she kept recording. It was all there. The confession that they had planned everything, that they knew she had died in the sea, that they were trying to cover it up. It was the proof she needed, but it wasn't enough. A recording like that could be challenged, edited, discredited. She needed more. She needed them to expose themselves so obviously that there would be no denying it. Then an opportunity arose. Richard was going to participate in a live television debate, and the team needed someone trustworthy to accompany him backstage. Marina volunteered, and backstage she planted a small camera in the waiting room, a camera connected to her phone, which streamed everything live to a cloud file. On the day of the debate, Mary arrived early. She checked if the camera was working, if the audio was good. Everything perfect. Now she just had to wait for the pressure of the moment to make Richard and the others say what they shouldn't. And they did. Before going on stage, nervous and irritated by the questions he knew were coming, Richard argued with Thomas. If anyone asks about Mary, deflect the subject. Say it's too painful, that I prefer not to comment. No details. What if they insist? Thomas asked. Insist on what? We covered everything. The police filed the case as an accident, no body, no evidence. I'm the victim here, remember? It was all recorded, all documented, and the best part, they had no idea. Mary's final plan was bold and dangerous. She knew that simply releasing the recordings wouldn't be enough. They could claim manipulation, fabrication, political persecution. She needed something bigger, something that would leave no doubt. So she created a situation where they would incriminate themselves. She made Richard believe that an investigative journalist was researching his past, about to publish an explosive story. Desperation took hold of the candidate and his team. They began to move carelessly, trying to erase tracks, bribe people, threaten witnesses, and Mary documented everything. Every call, every suspicious meeting, every attempt to cover up the truth. The net was tightening, but they didn't realize the trap had been set by someone from within. On the most important day of the campaign, the eve of the election, Richard hosted a dinner at his home for his main supporters. Mary was invited as part of the trusted team. She accepted, even knowing the risk. The house was luxurious, decorated to impress. Mary recognized some paintings that had been hers and Richard's, some photos from their wedding that had been edited to remove her and insert Brenda. It was revolting. During dinner, she remained alert. And then, late that night, when most of the guests had left, Thomas pulled Richard and Brenda onto the balcony. Mary followed discreetly, keeping her distance. Marina is getting too confident, Thomas said, worried. She knows too much. I think we should. Should what? Richard asked, impatient. Deal with her, like we did with Mary. Mary's blood ran cold. They were planning to kill her again, but this time she was prepared. She had left a news crew hidden outside with cameras and microphones. Everything was being streamed live online, though neither Richard nor the others knew. Are you crazy? Brenda whispered, nervous. We can't do that again. We can't let her talk either, Thomas retorted. She knows about the embezzlement, about the fraudulent contracts if she opens her mouth. It was then that Mary emerged from the shadows, her phone in hand. I won't open my mouth, she said calmly. I already have, to the whole country. The three turned in shock. Richard paled. Marina, what are you talking about? It's not Marina, she replied, taking off her glasses, letting her hair down. It's Mary. Do you remember me, Richard? The woman you pushed off the cliff 3 years ago? The silence that followed was absolute. Brenda put her hand to her mouth, her eyes wide. Thomas reeled, staggering, and Richard went white as a sheet. This is impossible, he murmured. You died. I saw you fall. You saw, Mary agreed, her voice firm. But I didn't die. I survived, and I spent 3 years with no memory, not knowing who I was, until I saw you on television lying about me, using my death as a political platform. You're insane. Richard tried, but his voice was trembling. You can't prove anything. Mary smiled, a sad smile. I have everything proven, every one of your conversations, every confession, every threat, and everything is being streamed live right now. The entire country is watching you. Richard lunged forward, aggressive, but at that moment the police stormed the house. They had been alerted by the news crew and had been there for minutes waiting for the right moment. Richard Miller, you are under arrest for attempted murder. concealment of a body, corruption, and racketeering, the detective announced, putting on the handcuffs. The arrest was broadcast live. Social media exploded. Mary's story went viral in minutes. The woman who had been presumed dead, who had survived the impossible, who had returned to seek justice. But for Mary, there was still one mission: her son, the boy she had lost shortly after birth. With the help of Mrs. Celia and Mrs. Rose, she managed to track down the family who had adopted him. They were good people who had taken good care of him, but who understood Mary's right to reunite with her son. The reunion happened on a sunny afternoon, in the same little house by the sea where everything had begun again. The boy, now 3 years old, entered shyly, holding his adoptive mother's hand. He had Mary's eyes, the same round face. "Hi," she said, kneeling to be at his height. "Do you know who I am?" The boy shook his head, but when Mary extended her hand, he took it without hesitation. And in that touch, in that moment of connection, something passed between them, a memory that transcended time, a love that had survived everything. "I'm your mother," Mary whispered, tears falling, "and I'll never leave you again." The boy came closer and hugged her tightly, as if he knew, as if somehow he had been waiting for that moment his whole life. Richard, Brenda, and Thomas were convicted. The evidence was irrefutable. The live confession had been seen by millions of people. They would pay for their crimes, for their malice, for attempting to destroy an innocent life. And Mary, finally, could truly start over. Not as Claire, not as Marina, but as herself, with her son in her arms, with her truth re-established, with her justice won. The scar from the fall would never disappear. The pain of the betrayal would never be completely forgotten. But something new was being born within her. The certainty that she had won, that she had survived the worst and had emerged stronger. And as she looked out at the sea, the same sea that had almost killed her, Mary felt peace, a deep, true peace, earned through pain, but also through courage. The sun was setting on the horizon, painting the sky orange and pink, exactly as it had on that fateful day in Monterey. But this time, there was no fear, only gratitude for being alive, for having her son, for having triumphed. And so ends the journey of Mary, a woman who lost everything but found the strength to rebuild her life. If this story touched your heart, be sure to subscribe to the channel for more narratives that move and make you reflect. Leave a like and tell us in the comments what you thought of this incredible twist. Your participation is essential for us to continue bringing stories that stir the soul. Until next time.